if you're in a business, ideally you want to be the only person who's selling what you got, right? You want the people who are buying it to want it as much as possible. So if it's addictive, that's even better. And you want to be the only person who's selling it. You want the supply to be fairly limited, but you want the only availability of the supply to come through you. And that recipe means that actually you can keep the price high, right? You don't have to sell as much of it. You can keep the risk low, and you can make loads of money. You can keep your profit margin. So you can put these kids on trains, and you can send them out to different areas. You can intimidate them more easily. You can make them scared more easily, and you can impress them more easily as well. They're not gonna sit in an objective way and look down their nose at 50 quid, 100 quid, and try and haggle it up because they're like, I'm making 50 quid. You know, there are kids who will look at £50 and think that they're doing really, really well out of this. They don't think risk to reward. They don't think £50, I could go to prison, right? They don't go, that's not enough to make me risk going to prison, right? That's not enough to make, yeah, I could get stabbed by a rival drug dealer for this £50. It's not worth it, mate, right? They don't do that. They go, £50 like that, and then they just get drawn in, right? So that's how we ended up in this situation, and that's why it got targeted at the kids. And the other thing was with the intimidation of the children, that was your insulation for your top boy, as it were, yeah? If you get nicked and you've got my gear on you, 1, you owe me my gear back. 2, if you talk about me and you tell the authorities about me, you're dead. You will get buried, right? If you got any of my cash on you, remember whose cash it is. It's my cash. You're in debt to me, right? That's how it works, right? But if you get this from here to there, when you get to the other end, the person that you see, they'll give you a little bit of something, right? And that could be a pair of the new Nike Golden trainers. It could be computer games. It could be, you know, clothing. It could be a little bit of money, but it's not designed to be enough to make somebody walk away. Somebody else comes along and says, I can get you those Nike trainers. Yeah? They're so vulnerable. I'll get you that jacket that you want, that makes you feel so good. You know, we got kids walking around now in belts that are like £120 for a belt, right? Louis Vuitton belts and stuff like that. Because that's, you know, a Levi belt's not good enough. They gotta have Louis Vuitton, right? You know, I've been talking to kids. There's a kid that I was talking to in one school who showed me a hoodie top that's £36,000.
What?
Right? Louis Vuitton and a company that I'd never heard of called Supreme did a collab and made a hoodie, and they only made a few of them, so they sold them for £36,000 each. And the next thing that happened was Floyd Mayweather and some other rich people were seen wearing this £36,000 hoodie, and then there's a few like there. So if you want to be in that crowd, right? And this is the aspirational side. This is the bait that's in the trap. This is the cheese in the mouse trap, right? Down the side of the brain here, when they get to about primary school age, what they do is, you see, they start to form a frame of reference of what's scary, what they like, what's good, what's not good. And that's why you get kids who are like off the wall at 5 years old, because everything excites this, but they don't have any brakes on that, right? That's why they end up a crying mess. And you're like, why are you losing it over a packet of crisps, right? In the supermarket, but I want a packet of crisps. It's just a packet of crisps, dude. Suck it up, right? They don't know. They don't have the suck up method, right? Now, this grows when they get to about 11. That's when they start to, it grows until about the age of 25. That's why we've all done stupid stuff when we're 18, right? Because we haven't got the full dose of this yet, right? So 18 to 25, it's still growing and it's still developing, right? If you're smoking weed, this doesn't grow. And the reason why it doesn't grow is because the weed cushions that. It dumbs it down. It puts a warm blanket over it, The brain doesn't need to develop that. The weed is doing the work for it. So that's why you get a 15-year-old weed smoker who's got massive anger management issues. Yeah? Because at 15 years old, they haven't been learning how to regulate their anger. They've just been smoking weed instead to calm down, right? That's brain damage, right? They're not developing at the same rate as their peers. So a weed smoker at 16, and I've met so many of them, who they get to, you would see the correlation in the day. What time of the day were they getting kicked out of their classes and getting themselves expelled from school? Well, they smoked weed before they went in. It gets round to about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah. They turn round and they kick off with their teachers, or they fight somebody, or they punch somebody because they're getting edgy. Yeah? And the other kids are learning not to do that, right? The difference is, if a 6-year-old punches a 6-year-old, they're only little and they don't punch that hard. But 16-year-olds can really whack, and it gets really serious. A very good friend of mine had a little puppy. It was an Alsatian called Mowgli, right? And he used to bring Mowgli in, and Mowgli, I still love Mowgli to bits, right? But Mowgli's like a wolf now, right? But he started like this big. And my mistake was, when I started playing with Mowgli to begin with, I used to let him chew my fist. And he'd go like that, and I'd go, oh, Mowgli, you cheeky little pup, you, right? But then as Mowgli got bigger and bigger and bigger, right? One day I came in and Mowgli was like a 40-kilogram German shepherd that came bounding over to me, big enough to pin me on the ground. And what does he want to do to my fist then, right? Unfortunately, this is our children, right? Because the parents of the kids that are getting exploited remember them taking their first steps. They remember them in their baby walkers. They remember winding them in the middle of the night, the colic, you know? They didn't bring up drug dealers and people that knife each other, right? I guarantee you the kid that died on Saturday in Cambridge, right? He's 17 years old. 17 years of parental investment, right? His mum and dad start out in a place where they said, I'm gonna put 17 years into this kid so that this kid can go to London and pick up whatever and end up being set up in a park in Cambridge and die. This is like all of the signs and the symptoms that police have come out and they have said, this is a set-up, targeted killing. Now I'm asking you, with our Darwinian head on, right, thinking about it, what are the circumstances in our communities right now that lead to people being targeted and killed and murdered, right? You can shape these pieces of these puzzles together lots of different ways, you know? But Occam's razor, you know Occam's razor? The simplest explanation is usually the correct one, right? Isn't that where we start with our kids? When they come home and they're moaning about something and you're like, yeah, but what really happened, son, right? I got this detention. What did you get the detention for? Nothing, right? You got detention for nothing. Yeah, he hates me. Ah, he hates you. Yeah, right? So it's Occam's razor. You've got to start putting the pieces around this together. I know I've probably scared the life out of you already, but when it comes to criminal exploitation, I think one of the most cynical things that I ever saw was a kid who was building up. He thought he was like a business partner, and he was doing all this, he was selling all these drugs and whatever else. And they have what they call a G-pack, which is £1,000 worth of drugs. And they gave this guy, his kid really, £1,000 worth. And it was like a mixture of cash and drugs. And then he encountered some strangers that he'd never met before. And they recognized him for what he was. And they robbed him, there and then, very severely, in a nasty way. You ever come round here with this stuff again, you are on our territory. I'm sending a message out through you. So he got very brutally attacked. He lost all of the merchandise. And he went back to his business partner and said, I went down in this area just like I was told, and they got a hold of me and they did this to me and they did that to me. We can't stand for it. We've got to go back, because they're all pumped up on this Top Boy stuff, and we got hit back and all of this. And his business partner says, what do you mean, we? You owe me £1,000. You owe me £1,000 now, right? And if I don't get my £1,000 by Saturday, I'm gonna break your legs, right? So the situation now is the kid is like, I don't know where to get £1,000 from. Any money that he's been making, those little bits of money that he's been making have been going on trainers, and he's been encouraged to spend it and live the high life. He hasn't got the ability to raise up £1,000 by Saturday. So his friend, his business partner, comes back to him and says, look, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll work it out. You owe me £1,000, you can work it off, right? We call that debt bondage, right? You can work it off, but you understand something now. I can't be seen to be soft on this. So I'm not going to break your legs, but I am going to break your hand, right? And the kid will turn around and say, thank you. Thank you for breaking my hand. You're a good person, right? So the kid gets his hand broken, and now he's in debt for £1,000 plus interest.
Do they also orchestrate him being robbed to push him into debt to make what you just described happen?
The dealer never lost the drugs.
Yeah.
Yes, it was done for nothing.
So it's set up.
Yeah, he didn't owe them £1,000.
No.
But he don't know that. He never owed them anything, and he never did, because they're criminals anyway. But now he's got his hand broken, he's grateful to them, and now he's got to work it off. So he's not getting paid anymore. If he's lucky, he might get a bit of drugs to keep him straight on what he's been using. But he's not going to get the Nike trainers anymore, because they're a business. They don't need to bear that cost anymore. Pure profit, child exploitation, slavery, human trafficking. We call that modern day slavery, right? And what they do is they will deliberately take that child out of their natural habitat, their natural environment of Cambridge, and they'll send them up to Manchester, where they know nobody, right? Because they want to separate them from every method of strength, every familiarity that they could possibly have, right? It's horrific. And then when they hit Manchester, this kid will look like the most bedraggled, homeless, threatening, traumatized, violent kid suffering PTSD, lashing out at people with a drug dependency problem. Yeah, and the signs that he's been fighting. Yeah? And as a community, as a nationality, do we see these kids as victims? Or do we see them as perpetrators? Right? And what do the organised crime people, what do they want? They want us to see them as perpetrators. Because if our mind is on them as drug dealers, it's not on the guy at the top who gets all the money and goes and lives in Marbella